This is the walkthrough for the discovery document which you'll use in the analysis phase of creating your training project. This document is used in the very first meeting you have with stakeholders to set expectations, establish boundaries and parameters, and define resources like subject matter experts, data, or previous training. This document will always change according to the needs of your organization, your stakeholders, or other factors that may be involved, such as industry or the type of training requests they're making. You will always want to remove questions or add questions or update questions that will apply to the industry, to the stakeholders, like what unit they might be working in, or if they just don't matter at all. Some questions that are in this document are specifically part of the level setting with you and the stakeholder. For instance, one such question that you'll always ask is, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? You ask this question in order to get the stakeholders' input for what they're observing. This is where you find out if what they're observing is based on data, anecdotal information, or something that's out of their control, like a system or process update. This question is important because it lets the stakeholder know that you're listening and paying attention, but it also frames the type of analysis you're going through and also how you might have to argue the consequences of your analysis. This question gives you the opportunity to hear from your stakeholder what they perceive the problems to be, but it also gives you an opportunity to get an idea of what they're perceiving, and it'll help you provide guidance on your analysis and also provide insight on how you're going to argue the conclusions of your analysis. As you're asking questions, you want to write down their answers. There may be follow-up questions that you might have to ask. You want to write down those follow-up questions as well as the answers that go with them. Even more so, your stakeholder might ask you questions. You'll want to write down their questions and what your response was to those also. Taking a look at some of these questions: what does success look like? What milestones and dates are critical to meet? Describe the audience of this product. These are important questions you'll almost always require of your stakeholders in the discovery meeting. The reason is that if they have deadlines that you're unaware of, you need to know those. For instance, if there's a software rollout for customer service reps, you need to know what date that software is going to be rolled out, because you're going to need all that time ahead to train people and prepare them for that rollout, which then sets deadlines that go further back, such as when you can send things for review, how to contact subject matter experts and set deadlines for them in delivering content, and even further back, where your analysis has to conclude and the design has to begin. Knowing your audience is very important also. If you don't know your audience, you don't know what assumptions you can make about your audience, and you won't know exactly what you have to deliver. But there are also questions that might not apply. For instance, we go to the bottom here. Can you provide a list of A, B, and C rated consultants for evaluation and establishing a baseline? This might be a question that the stakeholders don't want to answer, or they just won't allow you to ask. The reason being, you might be in an industry that doesn't allow for observation, or just simply managers and supervisors don't want somebody else on the floor observing their employees as they're working. If you end up not asking a question that is on your discovery document, you'll want to include an explanation why. This is the beginning of the process of documenting your project. It's also establishing that learning chain of evidence that we've talked about. This becomes part of the reasons and explanations for why you ended up with the training that you had. Remember that why this way? This is the beginning of answering that question. At the end of your meeting, you'll always want to follow up by typing all this up and providing a summary of the answers that you were provided. You email that to all the stakeholders with a time frame for their response. You ask them to clarify anything that they see that doesn't equate to what they remember talking about, but also by establishing a timeline of when you want this review back, you're setting it up that if they do not respond, then they're giving tacit approval to the email and to the content of that email. So to recap, this document is the first step in your training project. It is also the first step in acquiring the information you need for your analysis. It establishes the boundaries, the parameters, the assumptions you can make, as well as the audience that you're going to be delivering this training to. But ultimately, it's also providing that first step in documenting a process that will protect you from liability, but also establishes why you've developed training the way you have.